The following is a sponsored program paid for by Robin Gwaltney Group-RE Results. Welcome to Rochester Real Estate, featuring Robin Gwaltney from Gwaltney Group-RE Results and Andy Brownell. Here's Andy Brownell on Rochester's News Talk, 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Good morning, Andy Brownell. It's News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM. And I'm joined by Robin Gwaltney Group-RE Results. Good morning, Robin, and welcome to the Labor Day weekend.
Yay! And it's going to be a cooker all weekend.
Sounds like it, yes.
I'm having an end of summer pool party tomorrow.
Perfect, then.
Yeah, perfect for that.
Yeah, everybody will be in the water, that's for sure. Although I think there's going to be a nice breeze all weekend, so it won't be scorching. And it's not supposed to be over 100 degrees either. I think they've kind of backed off a little bit.
They have.
I'm not the weather forecaster, so I'm going to stay with that.
You're not even going to pretend to be?
I don't want to be the messenger even.
All right. Well, how about instead we'll talk about the housing market. We can talk about that because that's something we are experts in. All right. So I want to start with some positive numbers. I just heard from my marketing guy that our August was up 40% over August last year.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, that's pretty good, isn't it? And our September for what we have on the books is also ahead of where we were last year. So I am feeling pretty darn excited.
Well, that's what you predicted as well. I remember that.
Exactly.
By the end of the summer,
it'll start picking up, but we've been busy. A question that I get a lot, Andy, and I think would be worth spending a few minutes on is what is the relationship between housing inflation and overall inflation? Okay.
Sure.
So housing inflation is obviously the measure of price growth specific to housing, right? And overall inflation measures the cost of everyday items. So not only the housing, but, not the housing, but the other things like the food and the gas and just everything overall. So, of course, the overall inflation does affect the housing market. And that's why you keep hearing and seeing that if the feds don't start dropping the interest rates, people are really worried about what's going to happen to the housing market. We've spent a lot of time talking about this, but I think people are still kind of confused.
Okay. Where is the confusion coming from, I guess?
Well, people will say to me...
I'm a little too close to this, I think.
Well, I hear people say to me all the time, so when is the housing market going to crash? I'm like, oh my God, could you just go back and listen to my show for the last... Because everything is so gloom and doom, and there's, the rates are going to continue to go up, and inflation hasn't slowed down enough. Well, let me just focus on, which I don't even know if there's a lot of truth to all that, because I think inflation has slowed down quite a bit. And I think the numbers show that. Maybe they're not down to where they want them. I think the goal, the Fed's goal is like 2%, right?
Yeah, and that seems kind of almost unrealistic to me.
Almost unrealistic. Yeah, I agree with that. So the good news is, even though they have done a few additional rate hikes, it hasn't necessarily affect mortgage rates, okay? So again, this is very different in every single market, even different from institution to institution within a market. But there are still rates out there that are very, very favorable. So, and numbers and predictors are still saying that by the end of 2024, we'll be back down to that 5.5% or 5%. Am I saying that you should wait until the end of 2024 to buy your house? Absolutely not. Pick the house, buy it now while you're not fighting with 10 other people for it. And the price is only going to go up between now and the end of 2024. That is a promise. It's not going to go down.
And also, if rates go down, it'll increase demand, which will drive prices up.
Exactly. Not only drive up the prices, but it'll drive up those inflated offers where we get back into the multiple offers and you've got 6 or 8 or 10 people all wanting the same house. And now you're spending 10 or 20 or 30 or 50 or 100,000 more than the asking price to get it. So don't wait to get into that mess. Find the house you want, marry the house, date the best rate you can find until a better one comes along, and then dump that rate and pick a new one, right?
Been there, done that.
So that's what people need to be thinking about.
And on a macroeconomic scale outlook on this, it's not the interest rates that are the key. I don't know what word I'm looking. Key factor.
Determinators.
It's the inventory business.
It's the inventory business. We have buyers. Let me tell you that back in 2000, let's not even talk about those pandemic years, because as you and I have called them many times, those are unicorn years.
Yep, outliers.
So let's think about 17, 18, and 19. All right. So I have a chart in front of me that says in the month of June in 2023, there were 198.3 qualified buyers in our market, but in 2000 out shopping for a house. In 2017, in that same month, it was 130. In 2018, it was 129. And in 2019, it was 126. So here we are with quite a few more qualified buyers out there wanting to buy a house. We just have that shortage of inventory.
Yep.
And unfortunately, that's been the holdup.
Well, and that guarantees there won't be a collapse in the market because you don't have an ability to exceed demand. Exactly.
And the people who own the homes, again, have on average $270,000 worth of equity. So they're not having to come, if they decide, oh shoot, now my school loans have kicked back into play and I've got to start making them, doggone it, we had to buy a new car because ours broke down. Now we have to make our house payment too, and then with inflation and spending more at the gas pump and more at the grocery store, I don't think we can afford this house anymore. Well, they're not going to back themselves into a position where they have to walk away and
right.
go into foreclosure. Instead, they're going to say, oh, I can't afford this house anymore. I need to call a good realtor, get it on the market, get out my equity, put myself in a much more comfortable position, either buy something that I can afford or rent something temporarily until I can put myself back into the position to buy a house. But it's a completely different scenario.
I think somebody should appoint you to the Fed.
Well, thanks. No, actually, no thanks.
But once again, going back to the macroeconomic issues that they keep talking about, it's the real driver on this inflationary factor is the energy prices.
Exactly.
Which affect the food prices, which affect everything.
Everything. I have always said that. I've always said if you go to the gas pump and the prices are reasonable, it's like it's the starting of it. Oh, hey, let's fill up our car and go on a trip. Hey, while we're on that trip, we're going to have to stop and see things. We're going to stop and eat. We're going to stay at hotels. You know, it's just the driving factor. And it's so basic and so simple. And I love that I've heard things like cars are going to have to become more economical. There's, more miles per gallon that they have to get by the end of this year and by the end of next year. I mean, it makes sense, right? If we can put people on the moon, we can most certainly make car engines go more miles. Right?
Well, it all depends on what you want in your car. This is a show about automobiles, but we pack our cars so full of luxury items right now that is the main thing that is halting the really big gains, because the engines are remarkably efficient nowadays.
Right.
But we love our luxury.
Yes. That's the truth. But anyway, so if we can figure out how to get those energy prices down, everybody's going to be in a good shape. In the meantime, what I need people to focus on is, what is your monthly budget for housing?
Yes.
Because housing is something we all need. It's not really a luxury. It's a necessity. And so we have to live somewhere, whether it's in mom and dad's basement, whether it's in an apartment, or whether it's a big, beautiful mansion. But we all have a different budget, so we have to match up our budget to where we're going to live. And once we figure out what our budget is, that's when it's a good time to decide, hey, this is my monthly budget. This is what I have for cash reserves. This is my credit score. This is my income. What's the best plan for me? Right? So that's when you call me and we sit down and I say, you know what? For the next couple of years, you better rent and save a little bit more money. Or boy, oh boy, what are you doing? Stop throwing your money away to rent. You've got a perfect situation to buy a house. And it might not be your forever house. Likely it's not.
Right.
But it's a house that you can live in and pay that monthly payment. And then what does it become? It becomes the bank account that you live in.
Absolutely.
Because you pay your mortgage every month, but at the same time, you're building equity, you're building wealth.
You covered every single one of the issues right there.
I tell you what, I'm so passionate about this. And there's so many people that could be so much better off financially if they were just educated about it. And I am happy to teach everything I know. I am happy to sit with people and counsel them one-on-one. I don't even charge a red cent for this. I just hope that I'll build a relationship, and that when they are ready to become a buyer, they will like me and trust me and decide to use me. If they don't, well, that's my loss.
Well, it's still your gain because you help.
They're still educated.
Overall. Yes.
Yes, you're correct.
Let's take a quick break. We'll return and chat some more with Robin Gwaltney. Gwaltney Group RE/MAX results on News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
We'll be right back with Robin Gwaltney and Andy Brownell on Rochester Real Estate. This is News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM. To Rochester Real Robin Gwaltney from Gwaltney Group RE/MAX results and Andy Brownell on Rochester's News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Good morning and welcome back, everyone. Robin Gwaltney, Gwaltney Group RE/MAX results this morning. And before we took the break, Robin, everything you were talking about the budget, having that budget for the housing portion of your budget or your overall budget.
Expenses, yeah.
The expenses. And I think about the rents that people are paying right now. I mean, that's the obvious place to start. If you could afford to pay that rent, you know you can afford that much to pay for a mortgage.
Yes, exactly. And it might not be brand new, and it might not have fancy appliances and granite countertops, but you have to look past that. And before you start paying $1,500 a month to have a snazzy little one-bedroom apartment, I'm going to tell you what, I can put you in an adorable little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, and you're probably going to pay less per month, and you're going to have something to show for it when it's time to move on.
Yes, that's the thing right there.
Building blocks. I've said this before on the show, and I will say it again. I am not afraid to admit, I'm actually proud to admit that my first home was a trailer home in the mobile home park out in Stewartville. And my husband and I bought it contract for deed. We were newly married, and we bought it from Ed Fixstall from Fixstall Flowers. You remember Ed?
Oh, yeah.
I had been renting. My first move out of the home was renting an apartment above the flower shop. And Ed had bought this home for an employee. And then things didn't work out. The employee ended up getting divorced, moving away, and Ed got stuck with the trailer. So he asked me if I'd be interested in it. And my initial reaction was, ooh, I don't want to live in a trailer. And then he showed it to me and he said, Robin, I will put new appliances because the lovely employee had taken the old ones. I'll put new flooring. I'll make it and I thought, you know what? This is better than any apartment I've lived in, and I'll own it. So we were able to really focus on paying him, and we paid it off in 5 years, which we were very proud of back then. And then we took that money. We actually turned around and sold it for the exact same amount that we bought it for. So we bought it for $10,000, paid for it in 5 years,
and then
sold and lived in it. It was our shelter. We paid $70 a month park rent at that time. Boy, that's gone up a lot. But anyway, we sold it for $10,000. And then we took that money, we had that clump sum to put down on a down payment on the first house that we bought, which was $78,000. And by the time we sold that house, it was $150,000. So we took the money we made from that house to buy the next house, and so on and so forth. And that's how you do it. You don't And
now you're having a pool party for Labor Day weekend.
Yes, in my final and ever house, I think. People say that, but we just love it here. It's just so quiet and relaxing, and can't beat it. Nothing fancy. I mean, it has a pool, but the house is nothing fancy.
But the frustration I have for the folks who you're talking to, as far as educating them on the bank account you live in, that somehow that I'm going to stay in this rental situation for this long 10 years and somehow magically you're going to save up that down payment for that forever home. It's not going to happen that way.
Right.
And the way you get there is the way you described it.
And I was so blessed that Ed Fixdahl and my dad both talked the sense into me to say, stop thinking that you're above that and think about this as an opportunity. Think about it. Just pretend like you're renting it because you're not going to live here forever. And, then the good news is when you're done renting it and you're ready to move on to the next place, you're really not renting it. You get to sell it and get all that money back that you paid. So I love it. And I love when I do that. I have one particular client, and he is a very successful businessman in the community. And when I sold him his first house, he was 19 years old. And I remember sitting with him and telling him this story. And he was single when he bought that house. And then he got engaged. And then his girlfriend had moved in, her fiance. And then they sold that house and bought a bigger house. And then they sold that house and bought a bigger house. And then I helped them finally sell that house. And now they're in their dream home. And it's a big, beautiful, gorgeous house where they've raised their kids. But it worked out so perfectly for him. And it doesn't surprise me because he's in the business of financial planning. So he's smart. He's smart with money. He gets it. But I've watched it play out, not only in my life, but in other clients' lives. And it just means live to the point that you can afford comfortably, and then use that to move on, to move on, to move on. It's just not overnight. So many of these young people just want the biggest, the best, the fanciest right away, right off the bat, because that's kind of what social media shows. That's kind of what, all the influencers show. That's whatever. It's just the way it's just the way it is. But I can tell you there's a smarter way, guys, than paying big bucks for those fancy apartments.
The two keys to growing wealth are, get my grammar correct, equity and compounding interest.
Exactly. And you know what? I have a lot of investors that buy, and I love it when these are these young kids too. They buy something to use it as a rental, and they're literally making no money each month. So you think. Yeah, so exactly. You think. But they're building that equity, right? And eventually when they own that house outright because their renters have paid for it, then they're going to sell it and take that money to do better things with, or they're going to continue to rent it and make the income, because they have no payments on it.
Yeah. I know people that's how they fund their retirement, is the rents that they receive off the property they own.
Most people, or just by selling the house that they've paid for and then downsizing or whatever. But yeah, most people rely on their real estate wealth or real estate investments to make it through retirement. Yeah. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, the one individual particularly never had access to pensions or anything like that, and decided, I'm going to buy some rental properties and they'll be paid off, as you described, by the renters.
Yep. Exactly.
And then after that, it was all gravy.
Yeah.
So he gets some monthly payments from the renters to live in his retirement life.
And I love it when I have young buyers that have the opportunity to buy a inexpensive side-by-side. There's quite a few of them over in Northwest Rochester in the Cimarron neighborhood over in there.
Yep.
And I love it when they can buy one of those and then live there. And I've seen it happen a couple of ways. Live there for a few years and then keep it as a rental. Or I've even had a few buyers that have had the opportunity to buy the other side. So they stay living there but rent out the other side. So by the time they're taking their rent, oftentimes it's making the mortgage on both sides. And eventually they'll leave there and rent out both sides. So I love this. This is what I love. So honestly, if you're thinking, gosh, maybe I can afford to buy a house, or maybe I should look into investment properties, let's just sit down and talk about it, because I may just really enlighten you and excite you, and who knows?
There we go.
Ignite you. Yeah.
Let's take a break. We'll come back in just a few seconds and chat more with Robin Gwaltney, Gwaltney Group-RE Results, here on News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
We'll be right back with Robin Gwaltney and Andy Brownell on Rochester Real Estate. This is News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
It's new, and it's going to become...
To Rochester Real Gwaltney from Gwaltney Group-RE Results and Andy Brownell on Rochester's News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Welcome back, everyone. Robin Gwaltney, Gwaltney Group-RE Results, and we've been talking about just how darn smart it is to buy either your own home or even investment properties to gain wealth. And we've talked about this before because I used to just laugh 15, 20 years ago when the powers that may be pronounced that, oh, these millennials, they're not interested in home ownership. And
yes, I can remember us talking about on the radio show, and they're saying they're going to want to
get out.
Only rent. Yes, exactly.
I go
Speaking
until
of
they're
which,
30.
Yeah. Speaking of which, doesn't it ever make you feel old that we are the baby boomers? I mean, they talked about baby boomers, and they were, I remember when it was like the baby boomers are the up and coming.
Yeah.
Well, now it's Gen Z.
We're kind of right on the edge of that, by the way.
We've blown way past. Yeah, well, we're still there. I don't know if you saw my post, but on Friday, Scott and I went up to the state fair, and there was an AARP block party, and I said, "Let's go over there." He goes, "Are you crazy?"
That's not for us.
And they had like spin the wheel for free prizes, do this match game thing, do the photo booth. They were super nice to talk to. He's like, "Oh my God, lady, this is hilarious." But yeah, so we've blown by that. We've blown by Gen X. Now we're on to Gen Z, right? The next generation.
All right. And who is
making them? Making their moves.
Are they in their early 20s now? Is that who Gen Z is?
I would say they're in their early to mid 20s, right? Okay. And so these kids, these very smart, intelligent kids, many of them, in a recent survey done by Rocket Mortgage, it says that the top motivators that are driving Gen Zs to purchase a home is they want financial independence. Therefore, they are staying in their parents' basement. Okay, maybe they're not all in the basement. Some of them might live upstairs, but you know what I mean. They're staying at home.
So their parents are lucky they're in the basement.
Staying at home, saving money, and going right from living at home with mom and dad to buying a house. They're just surpassing that whole throwing my money out the window to rent.
Actually, I know two young ladies who did exactly that. They lived for an extended period of time in their parents' basement and used all of the income from their jobs, or most of it, to put together some amazing down payments for some beautiful homes. Oh, my gosh.
Both of my kids did it. They stayed with us and saved money until they could buy, and I love it. Well, they stayed with us, and then they stayed at Matt's mom's house. You know, they had that little bridge too. But the bottom line is that they were smart about it. They grew up with parents who are realtors, so they understand it. Everybody doesn't. As a matter of fact, I had a gal that worked for us. She doesn't anymore, but she worked for us. And when I hired her, I didn't realize she didn't own a home. And she said, "Someday I might buy a house." Now she was in her 40s, and I said, "Now wait a minute. You don't own your home?" She goes, "No, we rent." I go, "Why is that?" She goes, "I don't know. I've never thought about owning. My parents always rented when I grew up, and, she grew up in a bigger city." And she said, "I just thought renting was the thing to do." So I said, "Oh, we're going to change that right now." So within maybe a month, she bought a house.
Yeah, I bet she did.
And then when she left town, when she moved away, she sold that house to the tune of over $100,000 profit. If she had stayed renting, guess what she would have had when she quit her job and moved away?
Big fat zero.
You got it. So once again, the theory works, guys. I promise you. So please do not focus on, oh, the inflation's so bad, the rates are so high, the da-da-da. Even back in the days when the rates were double digits, people found a way to buy homes.
Yeah, I'm raising my hand right now.
Yeah, we're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep selling houses. So all of you homeowners that have houses that you might want to sell, oh my gosh, we can sell those for you. We want to sell them. We've got buyers out there. These Gen Zs are jumping into they say that this millennial group of home buyers is the largest group of qualified home buyers out in the active market that the market has seen at one time in a very long time. And so we've got all these people who have great jobs, who are qualified to buy, who've saved up their money, who've got great credit. They check all the boxes, and they're motivated to become homeowners. So now we just have to have homes to sell them.
Yes. And the key to that actually is to find some place for you old boomers like you and I to move into.
Yep. That's exactly right. That's right. So maybe we're not there yet, but the ones that are a little older than us, because really a lot of people are still in house. My parents were a perfect example. They were in a house that was just way too much for them to manage. And luckily for them, I was able to buy them the right size home right next door to us and move them there. And now there's a young family who can actually use the space at the other house. Well, they're not quite here yet, but they're coming. Sure. And so, it's like we have to keep putting things to their best purpose, right?
Well,
to their best use.
I think back 30 years ago when the boomers our age were getting the little kids and all the multi-level homes that were built.
Yes.
And now you're getting into your 60s and thinking...
One level, thank you.
That's a lot of steps.
One level, thank you. It's a lot of steps and a lot of cleaning and a lot of everything. So it's just more than we need. And that's why I'm super grateful, where when we built this house that we live in now, we only built it as a weekend place. So we didn't go crazy. It's not super big. It's... I don't know, just 3,000. Yeah, I don't know. But it's perfect. And we have a whole lower level, but we don't have to go down there. Everything we need is on one level. Our bedroom, our laundry room, our kitchen, our living room. So if we don't want to go downstairs, we don't have to. But if we do, and we get to the point where we can't do the steps, I've got one of those little chair riders because I put it in for my parents. And that's what a lot of people are doing to adapt to stay home, because people really do want to stay at home. So if they make the move to that right house while they're in their 60s, when they come to their 80s, they can probably stay longer because they made the move when they could have.
And that's the key. Well, we're out of time, but the main floor laundry is always the key. When we put that into my home, I was questioned, why would you take up that space on the main floor? I go, I'm thinking ahead.
No, it's good. We're out of time. Is that what you said?
Yeah, we better run. You got to get ready for a pool party.
Yep, I do. I got to clean my house, clean my yard, all those things. Cook. I'll love it. You know that. It's what I love to do. Everybody have a great holiday weekend. Stay safe, and we'll talk next weekend.
Okay, but if somebody really wants to call you on the holiday weekend, they can.
Oh, yeah, of course. Right? Of course. I'm always answering my phone. You know that. 507-259-4926. I welcome your calls anytime.
All right. Robin Gwaltney. Gwaltney Group RE/MAX results here on News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.